Hey everybody, Dr. Nick here on Feel Good Friday. Today I'm going to talk about a common question that I get, and it has to do with whether squats or hip thrusts are better for glute development. And I'm going to talk about why that's the wrong question to ask, and you really can't compare the two exercises. Let's take a look at the anatomy. So we're going to be talking about the glute max today. So you have other gluteal muscles, but we're going to focus on the glute max, so the big butt muscle that sits on top of all the other smaller muscles. It starts on the pelvis and comes down and attaches to your leg. Among other things, one of its main functions is hip extension, so bringing the leg backward. When we look at hip extension, it can happen in a couple different ways and at different ranges of motion. And that's why you can't compare the squat and the hip thrust, because they're very different. At the top of a squat, even if I'm engaging my glutes, the glutes aren't doing much as far as hip extension. Yes, they're stabilizing my hips and my pelvis and my spine, but they're not maximally contracting. As my hips get further and further to 90 degrees, or about the bottom of your squat, there's more and more force going through the glutes. As you come up out of that hole in your squat, as you get closer and closer to the top starting position, your glutes are going to have less force put through them. So the point of maximal load on the glutes in a squat is when your hips are bent at 90 degrees and you're in the bottom of that squat. The hip thrust is very different. When your hips are bent about 90 degrees or so, so when you're resting in the hip thrust, your glutes are pretty much relaxing, just like at the top of a squat. As you press up into hip extension, into your hip thrust, the point of maximal contraction for the glutes now is end range hip extension. So you can see that the squat and the hip thrust tax the glutes at different ranges of motion. When you're at the top of your squat, you have maximal hip extension, but not much work from the glutes. When you're at the peak contraction of a hip thrust, you're in hip extension and your glutes are being maximally taxed. At the bottom of a squat, when your hips are bent to about 90 degrees, your glutes are firing like crazy. But in a hip thrust, when your hips are bent, they're not maximally taxed. So my recommendation with these two exercises is do them both, because they train the glutes in different ways and through different ranges of motion. This is just scraping the surface of the research out there on these two exercises. For more information on this topic, be sure to get the links down below. I hope this helps. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.